This episode will show you and teach you how you can experience vocal freedom when you're singing. Here we go. Hi, and welcome to this new episode. I am so happy and so excited that you're here because the topic that we'll be covering today is vocal freedom and everything you need to know and everything you need to do in order to experience that vocal freedom. So you will learn what you need in your backpack full of vocal technique, right? So I see the world of vocal technique as a backpack. Maybe I haven't said that before. So imagine you have this backpack. And you have vocal technique A in that backpack, and then vocal technique B, and then vocal technique C, and slowly we're building up that backpack. And then you're singing, so you're climbing up the mountain, you're singing a song, and suddenly you encounter a problem or a difficulty. Maybe it's a high note, maybe it's a long sentence, and you run out of breath, right? It's a struggle, it's difficulty. Then you can take out of your backpack maybe vocal technique B, or you can take out of your backpack vocal technique C to help you overcome that struggle. That is how I see vocal technique and vocal freedom. Because what is vocal freedom? Vocal freedom is being able to sing whatever you want to sing. High notes, low notes, all the notes in between, without any tension, truly, freely. Singing freely. That for me is vocal freedom. And the mistakes that a lot of beginner singers do is, one, pushing on the voice. So lots of beginner singers, they will sing a song, and the higher the song goes, the more they start pushing that voice up. And that, of course, leads to tension. We don't want to have that. Another mistake that beginner singers do is not being mindful of the different registers that we have as a singer. They stay in one register. It's either chest voice or head voice. But they're not really switching between them. And also they're not activating their mixed voice. So the next mistake that lots of beginner singers make is not being mindful of their breathing. Lots of beginner singers just put on the music and they sing along, which is so much fun. But they're not really mindful of the vocal techniques behind it. So there's so many vocal techniques mistake that one can make if you don't have the knowledge or the awareness of what is going on. So once you can discard those mistakes, once you can be mindful that they're maybe there and you can let go of them, then there's a whole world that opens up. And that is the world that I call the world of the trained singer. Because a trained singer, as the name says it, is trained, is way more aware of what happens when we're singing. And the trained singer, once you get to that level, you experience vocal freedom. You have no difficulties anymore when singing. Your vocal color is the color that you want. Your voice is relaxed. There's no tension. There's no hoarseness. There's no pushing. That's the ideal world that we're all aiming towards, right? Now, if you're in the world of the trained singer, there is no note or pitch that is too high or too low for you. Everything is possible. Also, as a trained singer, it's very easy for you to be aware of those different vocal registers and really switch and change between them easily and effortlessly. You're not even thinking about changing registers anymore. It just happens. And that means that once that vocal technique is in your muscle memory, you don't really need to think about it anymore, which gives you the opportunity to focus on different things like improvisation or telling your story, telling the lyrics with emotions, with feelings. Give your listener, your audience goosebumps. Make them go quiet. Grab their attention. That is possible when you don't need to think about vocal technique, but it's incorporated into that vocal memory. So that sounds amazing, right? So then the question is this: how do we get there? How do we get there? Well, there's 4 steps or 4 phases, I would say, that you need to go through in order to experience that vocal freedom. So let's go over phase 1. Phase 1 is learning the foundations of vocal technique. And the foundations, well, that's breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, but also breath support. So I've got videos about all of those, so go check them out. But diaphragmatic breathing and breath support, that's the foundations. You can see that as the foundations of a building. If you're building a skyscraper, but the foundations are not well done, then the skyscraper might fall, right? The same thing happens when you're singing. I've got so many singers come to me that experience voice problems. They tell me they feel tension. They tell me that they feel hoarseness. And 90% of the time, the problem is breathing and breath support. So if you start there, if the foundation is right, then you're off for a good start. Then you're off for so many possibilities. So that is phase 1. Once those foundations are where they're supposed to be, once they're good, then you can go on to phase 2. Phase 2 is being mindful and aware of our different registers. So maybe you know it, maybe you don't, but we have different registers when we're singing. We've got our chest voice, we've got our head voice, yoo-hoo! You have your mixed voice, and you have so many registers. So if I go through all of them, you have vocal fry, to chest, to mix, to head voice, and then we have falsetto for the guys, and maybe even whistle register for the girls. So there's so many registers. And in phase 2, it's important that you can sing in all those registers, but especially use them to your advantage so that you know when to apply head voice register, when to apply mixed voice register, when to apply chest voice. And also switch through them without that we hear anything. So when you can switch from chest voice to head voice or from head voice to mixed voice, you know you're switching, but the listener shouldn't hear that. And that is where you have this beautiful range. That's phase 2. It's beautiful, isn't it? And then phase 3 is looking at your vocal color. Because lots of singers tell me that they hate the sound of their voice. And maybe that's something you recognize yourself in. If you hate the sound of your voice, you're definitely not alone. But there are vocal techniques that can help you to adjust the sound of your voice. So there is this one video on YouTube, which is called The Wheel of Musical Impression. And Ariana Grande is imitating other singers. She's imitating, I think it's Christina Aguilera, Whitney Houston, Celine Dion. So she's imitating them, and her voice sounds exactly like their voice. How does she do that? Well, she does that by playing with the color of her voice. She's using different techniques to change and enhance the color of her voice. The techniques include bite, cry, and twang, but also playing with your larynx position, for example. So that is phase 3. Phase 1 was the foundations. Phase 2 was being aware of the registers and being able to switch between them, making that transition. Then we had phase 3, which was all about vocal color. Make your voice sound the way that you want it to sound. And maybe in one song it could be pretty nasal, but then in another song it might be dark and warmer. It's up to you. And then the 4th phase to experience vocal freedom is looking at more extreme vocal techniques. So that is what I call the cherry on top. For example, you could have a very loud and powerful note like Christina Aguilera, right? That is belt. Or you can add some effects on your voice, like growl, or vibrato. You can add all of those little things that enhance your singing even more. They're not important for you to be able to sing in a healthy way, but they do enhance your performance. They do enhance the story that you're telling, because it's like little sprinklers on top of ice cream. It's the little plus that you get. And those are the vocal effects, the more extreme vocal techniques like belt or shout or scream, all those things. Very fun to play with. So those are the 4 phases. Again, we don't want to be pushing our voice. We don't want to be singing without being aware of where we're going. That's what beginner singers do. We want to experience that vocal freedom. And in order to get there, there's 4 phases that we need to go through. First, the foundations, breath support. Then the registers, chest voice, mixed voice, head voice. Then we have your vocal color. Make your voice sound how you want it to sound. And then the 4th thing is having fun with all the different effects that we can add. Those are the 4 phases. And those are also the phases of the vocal technique pillar. So maybe you know it, maybe you don't. I always work from the Sing Yourself to Freedom formula, which consists of 4 big pillars: vocal technique, mindset, creativity, connection. Today, we were in the vocal technique pillar, right? And inside the Singing Insiders, which is my membership, we're looking at these 4 phases so that you can grow as a singer and develop yourself as a singer, step by step by step. So whatever phase you are in right now, it's good to know where you are and where you can go from here. It's always important to start your vocal practice with a vocal warm-up. If you need one, if you want to have one, you can use mine. I have made a vocal warm-up for you. It's an MP3 and a PDF walking you step by step throughout the perfect vocal warm-up. It's the one that I use every morning. And you can download it for free. I will put the link in the description here below so that you can get started with that. And besides that, I would say this week, go ahead and find out which phase you're in and what your next steps are to get into the next phase. And if you know which phase you're in, put it in the comments here below. I'm very curious to hear where you are at in your singing journey. So thank you so much for spending time with me in this episode again today. And I can't wait to see you again next week. Bye.